La siguiente speaker, como les decíamos, no es primera vez que viene a 8.8, le invitamos porque tiene un tema muy importante que compartir con nosotros. Ella es Eva Galperin, así que por favor un aplauso muy fuerte para la siguiente speaker.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be back in Santiago. I keynoted this conference in 2022, and it's been really exciting to see how much this conference and this community has grown since then. It has been very little time, but a lot has happened. So, I am here to talk to you about cyberfascism. And the way that I usually start my talks is, hello, my name is Eva Galperin, and I am here to radicalize you. I am, in fact, here to radicalize you, but I am also here to tell you that you do not have to be a radical in order to do something. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, sort of what I think the big problems are in cybersecurity and what we can do to fix them. So you may be wondering who the hell I am. Maybe you were not here in 2022. There are lots of people here who were not here in 2022. I am Eva Galperin. I am the Director of Cybersecurity at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. The Electronic Frontier Foundation is a digital civil liberties organization that has existed since 1990, so it is very old. It is as old as the web, but not quite as old as the internet, and definitely old enough to know the difference. I am available at these various points of contact, and I am also the co-founder of the Coalition Against Stalkerware, which is a coalition of activists and security analysts, security companies, and practitioners on the ground who work directly with survivors of domestic abuse and their sort of tech-enabled abuse problems. So you may also be asking, what is the Electronic Frontier Foundation? Because so far all that I have told you about us is that we are very old. The EFF exists to make sure that when you go online, your rights come with you. And we do this in the following manner. We have sort of 3 teams all over the world, 3 kinds of people with whom we can identify and fight the problems that we think people have in the area of digital civil liberties. The first is that we have a team of angry attack lawyers. And the angry attack lawyers file lawsuits. Specifically, they do impact litigation. And the idea behind impact litigation is that impact litigation is a lawsuit that doesn't just help the person on whose behalf you are suing, but we think that it will help to create good law. We think it will help to create good precedent, or we think that the outcome of the lawsuit will help to overturn bad law and bad precedent. So that is what our lawyers do. We also have activists, because sometimes the answer for the kinds of problems that we face in the area of digital civil liberties is that you have to get people out in the streets. You need to get people angry. You need to write a letter to your representative. We need cute t-shirts and stickers. I often tell people that EFF is in fact a sticker and t-shirt company with a law firm attached. And then finally, we have my team, the people that I work with every day, and we are engineers, because sometimes the answer is you have to get out there and build things. And our team is divided up into sort of 2 types of engineers. One is the team that builds tools that we think the internet will make the internet better. One of those tools is Privacy Badger, the browser extension. So if you have ever installed Privacy Badger and used it to eat cookies so that you are not tracked online, you are welcome. Likewise, we also work on Let's Encrypt. So if you have ever gotten an SSL certificate with a single click, or needed to renew your SSL certificate approximately every 5 minutes, you're welcome. And this is what we do. And then finally, there are people like me who do policy and security research. And one of the things that we do is, again, we look at the problems in this world, and we start taking them apart and then writing reports about them. But we also do policy work, because it's extremely important when we talk about the internet, when we talk about laws, when we talk about what we are going to do, that there needs to be somebody in the room who knows how the goddamn internet works. And sometimes that's me. So I need to really start this talk with a tearful confession. I have a confession to make, and that confession is, ladies and gentlemen, I do not have a degree in computer science. I don't. I started to get a degree in computer science. I went to college. I was 18 years old. I took my first computer science classes, and I looked around, and I said, I have already been doing this for years, and I have a job as a systems administrator to pay for college. Why am I in computer science class? And when I went back to college, I got a degree in political science and international relations. And this turned out to be extremely strange, but also very useful, because in the United States it is apparently almost unheard of to be a person who understands how the internet works and also knows where countries are. This was my superpower. And all through my education in political science, we had agreed, teachers really spent a lot of time emphasizing this, that we live, we think, mostly, kind of, sort of, in a liberal democracy, and that fascism is bad. And so a lot of my classes were essentially teachers holding up flashcards going, is this a fascism? Is this a fascism? Is this fascism? Tell me the definitions of fascism. So imagine, if you will, that you are a political science or international relations student today in America, reading the news, which is written entirely by people who use all the words that were on your tests and use them in a way that would not have them pass the test at all. So we're going to start with some school. We're just going to start with, like, the absolute basics, which is, what is fascism? Something that, let me tell you, in the United States, we get wrong all the time. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, and ultranationalist political ideology defined by a dictatorial leader, the forcible suppression of opposition, and the regimentation of society and the economy. Famous fascists include Mussolini, Hitler, Franco. You might know another one, local boy. And so we spend a lot of time looking at our flashcards, going, how do we know it's fascism? And here is how we know. Here are the things that we look for. The first is centralized autocracy. Power is concentrated in the hands of a single leader who is viewed as infallible, possibly bright orange. Ultranationalism. So not just any nationalism, but like an intense, exclusionary nationalism that prioritizes the nation above all else. Sort of America first. It's often tied to a mythic past, suggesting that we should say, make America great again. And the notion of a perceived decline. America is not great. America being the United States in this particular example. And of course, this is because of a perceived humiliation. This is because the leader is the leader of a group of victims who have been stabbed in the back by their enemies. The next thing you look for is militarism. Fascism glorifies violence, conquest, and war, and often leads to external expansion and imperialism. So you will know that it is fascism because it's attacking its neighbors. There is also the forcible suppression of the opposition. Fascists use violence to silence dissent and persecute or eliminate perceived political enemies and minority groups. Let me know if this sounds familiar. There is an emphasis on hierarchy. It promotes a belief in a natural social hierarchy. There are just people who were meant to lead, and people who are meant to follow. And the people who are telling you this are also always somehow in the group that is meant to lead. And you, sir, over there, are always somehow in the group that is meant to follow. No one knows why this is. Political scientists have been studying it for many years. It also sometimes focuses on a national or race hierarchy. So one of the ways in which you will know that it is fascism is you'll be seeing a lot of racist rhetoric. And finally, populism and elite collaboration. Fascist movements use populist appeals to gain mass support, often while working with traditional elites. Again, let me know if this sounds familiar, to abandon democratic liberties. And then finally, the thing you're looking for is scapegoating. Fascism identifies specific enemies. The reason why your country is not great is because of those enemies. And as long as we can unify against the enemies and focus our anger on those enemies, then we will recreate the wonderful world of the past. So these are the things that we should be looking for. What do fascists believe? How do they behave? So violence, big on violence, love of violence. Fascism sees violence as a cleansing and empowering aspect that reshapes society. Early fascist violence was fueled by the chaos after World War I, and later war-making helped solidify fascist rule. We had an entire world war about it. A rejection of liberal democracy. You will hear a lot of rhetoric about how liberal democracy has failed. They fundamentally reject liberal democratic tenets, such as, I don't know, individual rights, pluralism, competitive elections, political dissent. Not fans. Mind you, when they need to protect their right to speak, they will be talking about free speech very much. But what they mean by free speech is their freedom to speak, not your freedom to speak, and certainly not the freedom of the opposition to speak. Economic regimentation. Fascist regimes often control and regulate the economy, suppressing labor power while protecting corporate interests. This is actually a thing that will come up later on the test when I talk about authoritarianism and totalitarianism. You should also be looking for propaganda and control of the media. Fascist states maintain power by controlling mass media, undermining the truth, and promoting myths. And we will be getting to that. We will talk about misinformation, disinformation, consolidation of media platforms. They are reactionary and revolutionary in nature. So they spend all of this time talking about how we need to return to an imaginary past, while also saying that we need a revolution to overthrow existing systems. And then finally, it is opposed to other ideologies. Fascism just really hates everybody else. Will this be on the exam? This will absolutely be on the exam. And I spent a lot of time thinking about these questions. Now, the reason that I spent a lot of time thinking about these questions is because I didn't start out studying fascism. I was really interested in internet censorship in the early 2000s. And so I spent all of my time studying China because not fascists, totalitarian and authoritarian communists, different test. And the reason why I spent all of this time studying China was because, they were the only censorship in town. And so it was an extremely common belief among internet researchers in the early 2000s that this was an aberration. that surely this internet censorship thing was not going to catch on. That eventually we would just have one great internet that would allow people to speak to one another, that would allow them to freely communicate, that would allow them to have some modicum of privacy, and please try not to laugh. This would lead to liberal democracy everywhere. That did not happen. So this is a chart from Freedom House that looks at the Internet Freedom Index scores of various countries, which governments have the tightest grip on the internet. This is a chart from 2021. I will go so far as to say that things have changed a little bit since then. But some notable things about this chart include that China is on top. China does keep an extremely tight grip on its internet. You can also see Iran up there, neither communist nor fascist, but totalitarian and authoritarian. Totalitarians and authoritarians love controlling the internet. What's particularly interesting about the placement of Iran very, very high up on the list is that Iran explicitly modeled its internet infrastructure on China's. They set out many years ago to essentially create their own version of the Chinese internet. The other interesting thing on this list is that down there at the bottom, you will see Russia. I would go so far as to say that since 2021, you might want to move Russia up a bit. And also that in addition to having very seriously cracked down on internet freedom in Russia, that the model for the unfree internet that the Russian government, again, explicitly uses is the Chinese model. So what the hell is happening in China, you might ask? So one of the notable things that is happening in China, beyond simply control of the internet, but like control of the entire digital lives of its population, and this is, there is no place where that is as intense as it is in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. Which has a significant Muslim minority called the Uyghurs, a word which cannot be pronounced by anyone in the United States. So China's version of the war on terror doesn't depend on drones or strikes by elite military units. It depends on facial recognition software and machine learning algorithms. And its targets aren't foreigners. They are a domestic minority of local Muslims. The web of surveillance reaches from cameras on buildings to chips inside of mobile devices to facial recognition, specifically of Uyghur physiognomy. So the typical facial features of Uyghurs who look quite distinct from the majority Han Chinese population. Face scanners and biometric checkpoints track their movements almost everywhere. Other programs scan Uyghurs' digital communications, looking for suspect patterns and flagging religious speech or even a lack of fervor in using Mandarin. Which, let me tell you, as a person who has used Mandarin, I fully understand their lack of fervor. Deep learning systems search in real time through video feeds, capturing millions of faces, and building an archive that supposedly can help identify suspicious behavior in order to predict who will become an unsafe actor. And you might ask, what are the actions that can trigger these computer vision technologies? They include dressing in an Islamic fashion, failing to attend nationalistic flag-raising ceremonies. All of these technical systems are brought together in a system which is constantly learning from the behaviors of the Uyghurs it watches. So this is really kind of a worst-case scenario for a fully surveilled population. And Chinese repression runs on technology built in the United States. At the time when I started studying Chinese internet censorship, Chinese internet censorship was largely a program called Golden Shield. And at that time, in the early 2000s, China did not have the kind of networking and filtering technology that was necessary to see what people were doing on the internet in a sort of mass surveillance fashion and identify them, it turns out, for torture. And specifically, they were interested in tracking a religious group called the Falun Gong. There is a large Falun Gong population outside of China that also organizes and gets spied upon, but in this particular case, they were interested in spying on Falun Gong members inside of China. And so, enter Cisco. Cisco started showing up at fairs and essentially begging for this job. They said, we have the networking equipment, we have the filtering equipment, we can absolutely help you find Falun Gong members. They were very specific about the fact that the purpose of this technology was to identify a group that the government wanted to suppress, and they were there to help. The reason that we know this is because many of the documents that Cisco presented to the Chinese government in helping to build Golden Shield have been brought to light in the course of investigations, but also in the case of a lawsuit. We have filed EFF has filed an amicus brief. This is the work of our angry attack lawyers in the United States on behalf of the Falun Gong, not against the Chinese government, because suing the Chinese government in a United States court is not going to get you very far. But we have sued Cisco for their part in building the Golden Shield project. And this lawsuit has been going on, I think, since at least 2016. So even though filing lawsuits is a very big deal and it can make a really big difference in the long run, it is a slow goddamn process. It requires tremendous patience. So we've talked a little bit about fascism. What makes it cyber? I spent a lot of time making fun of thought leaders on stages like this one, talking about cyber warfare and cyber espionage and a cyber Pearl Harbor and cyber. So why have I committed the sin of adding cyber to something that does not need to be cyber? The reason is this. I want to highlight two specific things that all of this digital information makes possible, and that fascism finds not just useful, but essential to its rise. One is that our lives are digital. There is an ever-increasing amount of data being created about people, about their movements, about their preferences, and their interactions. And this allows for an unprecedented level of tracking, surveillance, and control, which was never possible before. And then finally, our communications are largely digital. We communicate through digital media platforms, and we communicate through only a few platforms. These platforms are a choke point, and this means both that they can be spied on, they can be subverted, or they can be used as platforms for propaganda. And we will talk a little bit about what's going on with TikTok later in this talk, if you would like an example. Where is all this going? Nowhere good. I will now quote from my beloved coworker, Matthew Guariglia, who is also an expert in the history of surveillance and policing. And he very recently wrote an interesting thread on Blue Sky, which I will now tackily quote from. He said, "I spent the week at a police surveillance convention, and let me tell you my biggest observation. The name of the game now is consolidating as much information as humanly possible from surveillance devices, the internet, other governmental data, and literally a million other places. A number of big companies are incredibly interoperable with 1,000 other devices and companies and serve as major platforms to consolidate, fuse, map, and provide AI-enhanced analysis of this data. We're talking drones, ALPRs, automated license plate readers, surveillance cameras, gunshot detection, which doesn't work, by the way, and more. The smaller companies make money by getting the big ones to lease their services, providing specific information to bigger platforms. Now I'm lost. One company has relationships with smart home appliances for data. One company does only social media scraping and analysis. One does metadata from phone companies. You name any type of device or platform that collects data, a company exists that can package it and sell it as a data stream to police to be fused with everything else. Clear? Oh yeah. Geolocation from advertising data brokers? Yes! The big takeaway here is a mass erosion of barriers between governmental and corporate data collection and surveillance, and the idea that the one-off surveillance of walking past a single CCTV camera is over. The consolidation of all data means true mass surveillance from 100 redundant pieces of data. A few found cars is enough to appease folks that mass surveillance is okay for those small wins, but here are the important takeaways. Police are so shockingly cozy with the multi-billion-dollar companies that sell surveillance tech that you have to ask who is actually making policy. And there's no mention of the harms this can cause. Like policing generally, this tech is only being deployed a fraction of the time to address serious crime. And what does it do the other 22 hours of the day? And how will marginalized communities suffer for it? So that's my colleague's vision as of last week of where this is all headed. Now we can pull back a little bit and talk very quickly about history, because it turns out this is not the only time that this has happened. Laws regarding surveillance, which are meant to highlight oppressed and marginalized people in order to make them easier to identify and control, go back hundreds of years. For example, in the United States, the first legal framework for identifying, tracking, and controlling minority populations was established by laws like the Lantern Laws, a direct precursor to modern policing and surveillance technologies. Lantern laws were a colonial-era code, primarily in 18th century New York City, in the North, that required Black, mixed-race, and indigenous enslaved people to carry candle lanterns after dark when in public and without a white person. These laws served as an early form of surveillance and control, establishing a framework for modern stop and frisk, by deputizing any white person to stop those found without a required lantern. So what did these laws do? These laws served as a method of identification and control. The primary goal was to identify and control the movements of Black, mixed race, and indigenous enslaved people. It also served as a method of suppressing resistance. The laws aimed to discourage enslaved people from gathering, such as attending a school for slaves, which was a source of fear and resistance because an educated populace could rise up against you. And finally, it is a precedent for stop and frisk. By empowering any white person to stop and question individuals of color, the laws established a precedent for stop and frisk policing practices that continue to this day. Oh, but wait. This kind of behavior continued well into the 20th century. Let me tell you a thing about IBM. So, again, there I was in my political science class, and at the beginning of political science class, we all agree that fascism is bad, and that the man who embodies how bad fascism is Hitler. And so here is a story about how one of the largest and most powerful American tech companies not only helped Hitler, but explicitly courted him for the purpose of helping him to carry out the Holocaust. A heartwarming tale. So, the first thing that Hitler wanted to know was exactly how many Jews were in Germany. For later. IBM hired thousands of people to execute a door-to-door racial census. Once Hitler had the names and locations of Germany's Jews, IBM created systems to tabulate that data against professional and employment databases, as well as financial institutions to help Germany systematically take their money. Then, location data was used to organize the mass transfer of Jews from their homes into ghettos. Ghetto residents were then systemically forced onto trains into camps. Those trains ran on IBM punch cards and owed their punctual timetables to special IBM scheduling programs. All the work and prisoner data from the concentration camps was fed into a central nerve center in the T building, known as Section D2, and powered by custom-wired IBM machines. Everything IBM did was custom, specific, and tailored to the Nazis' specific needs. If this sounds like the behavior of Cisco courting China, that is not a coincidence. All IBM machines in Nazi Europe were leased with monthly payments. They were insured by American and German insurance companies at their Reich locations and serviced by repairmen twice monthly on site, where the noisy, syncopating machines were located in downtown Berlin or at Auschwitz. These machines were incapable of operating without IBM's custom punch cards, and each card could only be used once. Quoting from the book, IBM and the Holocaust, without a continuing card supply from IBM, the machines would have been like rifles without bullets. And just in case you want to think that this is the sort of thing that goes back to the 20th century, or goes back to the early 2000s, and is, I don't know, not happening today, I will say that you are wrong. So just last week, Microsoft finally blocked Israel's use of its technology in mass surveillance of Palestinians by taking away the spy unit 8200's access to its Azure cloud. One interesting note is that this only came about as a result or in reaction to a blockbuster report from The Guardian, which showed what Microsoft was doing. So Microsoft told Israeli decisions that Unit 8200 had violated the company's terms of service by storing the vast trove of surveillance data in its Azure cloud platform. The decision to cut off 8200's ability to use some of its technology was the result of this investigation, which revealed that Azure was being used to store and process the trove of Palestinian communications in a mass surveillance program. In a joint investigation with the Israeli-Palestinian publication Plus 972 magazine and the Hebrew language outlet Local Call, The Guardian revealed how Microsoft and Unit 8200 had worked together on a plan to move large volumes of sensitive intelligence material into Azure. Equipped with Azure's nearly limitless storage capacity and computing power, Unit 8200 built an indiscriminate new system, allowing its intelligence officers to collect, play back, and analyze the contents of cellular calls of an entire population. The project was so crazily expansive that, according to sources from inside Unit 8200, a mantra emerged internally that captured its scale and ambition: 1 million calls an hour. According to several sources, the enormous repository of intercepted calls, which amounted to as many as 8,000 terabytes of data, was held in a Microsoft data center in the Netherlands. Within days of The Guardian publishing the investigation, Unit 8200 appears to have swiftly moved the surveillance data out of the country. The decision by Microsoft to end the spy agency's access to key technology was made amid pressure from employees and investors over its work for Israel's military and the role its technology has played in the almost 2-year offensive in Gaza. And again, this will be on the test. This is the single most important thing, which is that Microsoft would not have woken up one day having suddenly grown a conscience, saying, what we did was wrong. They did it because they were outed in The Guardian. They did it because they were the subject of an investigation. And they did it because they faced pressure from their own investors and pressure from the people who worked at Microsoft, who got up and said, I don't want to be involved in this. Microsoft actually carried out more than one internal investigation. And the first internal investigation that they carried out actually came to the conclusion that they had done nothing wrong. And that's where you come in. I bet you can guess where this is all going. You are the people who work in tech. You are the people who decide who we're going to hire. You decide what we're going to build. You decide how we're going to build it. You are the people who do the internal investigations, who leak the data, who decide whether or not to make a presentation to Unit 8200 or to make a presentation to the Chinese government. And so there are some things that you need to watch out for if you are, if you would prefer not to be helping fascism by being one of the elites that is cooperating with it. The first thing that we need to guard against is powering surveillance. When you create a large mass surveillance state, even if you are doing it for good, what are you going to do when it is taken over by people who are bad? You don't want to leave that surveillance state lying around. In fact, you should not build it in the first place. This is one of the reasons why EFF spent so much time fighting mass surveillance in the United States in the years immediately following 9/11. And we still do, because we fundamentally believe that mass surveillance is unconstitutional. Nobody should be doing it. There is no reason for it. Now, when a government wants you to power surveillance, they will not tell you, what we really want to do is we want to create a giant system for suppression of the opposition and control. I mean, eventually they do this, but they don't show up on day one saying this. What they tell you is, we just want to protect the children. What they tell you is, we're going after criminals. We're just going after the illegal immigrants, which is somehow everybody. We're just going after the terrorists, who are all Muslim for some reason. And so this is something to really watch out for when you start getting requests from governments and law enforcement. They will very rarely tell you what they are doing, but they will absolutely use this language in order to get you to do it. You should watch out for government control of media and communications platforms. This is particularly concerning to me in the United States, where we have recently had some very interesting developments in the banning of TikTok. I don't know how many of you here remember, but TikTok is owned by Chinese owners. It is a very large, extremely popular social media platform. It is one of the very few popular social media platforms that is not owned by an American company. And so this made it incredibly unpopular during the extremely fascist Biden administration, where both Republicans and Democrats came together to forge a law saying we must ban TikTok. And the reason why we have to ban TikTok is twofold. One is they are spreading Chinese government propaganda. because they control the algorithm, and this allows them to spread their filthy propaganda to Americans. Never mind that Americans have a First Amendment right to view Chinese government propaganda. Again, when I was an undergraduate and I spent all of that time studying Chinese internet censorship, I read an enormous amount of Chinese government propaganda, and it was not at all illegal, and I needed it in order to do my work. So there was Chinese government propaganda, but also having this platform owned by the Chinese government was somehow a tremendous national security risk. How? They never explain. This whole law even went to court. Our courts upheld it, but they never even got into a debate about whether or not there was a national security risk. So the law was upheld. Then Trump was elected in the United States, and that happened again. And the first thing that he said was, yes, yes, of course, we are getting rid of TikTok. And the reason he did this was he thought that the people on TikTok were not Trump supporters. And so as long as the people on TikTok were not Trump supporters, as long as this was his opposition, yes, get rid of TikTok. TikTok, very bad. As soon as he learned that the people on TikTok were Trump supporters, suddenly TikTok was fine. But TikTok had been outlawed. And so what he did was he just decided, I will not enforce this law. I will not enforce this law for 30 days. Then I will not enforce this law for 90 days. Maybe I will not enforce this law for 120 days. Who knows? And in the meantime, he worked on putting together a group of American investors that would buy out the American audience of TikTok, create a separate platform that would be controlled by these investors. I think ByteDance, the owners of TikTok, would continue to have a minority stake, but they would not control the algorithm and they would not control the data, and that data would be controlled by a bunch of very rich American men who now owe a big favor to Donald Trump. Which results in a situation in which Americans who were very worried about being manipulated by Chinese government propaganda can now be very worried about being manipulated by American government propaganda. So much winning. The other thing that you should be very concerned about is a weakened response to disinformation and misinformation campaigns. This is something that we saw a lot in the early 2020s around election information and COVID information. There are vast bot farms meant to spread misinformation and disinformation, and the extremely limited number of companies that control our social media platforms have expressed less and less interest in preventing the spread of this misinformation, which is a very serious problem. And then finally, we need to be very concerned about technology that undermines our ability to believe that there is a truth. As part of a sort of reflection on where this is all going, one of the people who is being thrown out as a possible investor in the American TikTok is Oracle's CEO, Larry Ellison. And Larry Ellison recently gave a talk at the financial analyst meeting just last week, and as part of the Q&A, he said, citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and monitoring everything that is going on. And in a sort of burst of sunny optimism, he also says he expects law enforcement officers will also be subject to constant surveillance. Every police officer is going to be supervised at all times, and if there's a problem, AI will report that problem. That is how we are going to fix it. And a lot of people sent me this quote, and they said, look at Larry Ellison. What an idiot. And I am here to posit that Larry Ellison is not an idiot. Larry Ellison is a salesman. And what Larry Ellison is selling you is Larry Ellison. And specifically, what he is selling you is a world in which he controls vast troves of data, and you should give him this power. You should give him this power because it's going to make people good. And he thinks we're going to buy this load of crap. On the topic of misinformation, it's possible that many of you have seen this quote going around from Hannah Arendt, who has spent a lot of time writing about totalitarianism. Let me tell you, she was definitely on the exam. And the quote is, "This constant lying is not aimed at making the people believe a lie, but of ensuring that no one believes anything anymore. A people that can no longer distinguish between truth and lies cannot distinguish between right and wrong. And such a people, deprived of the power to think and judge, is, without knowing or willing it, completely subjected to the rule of lies. With such a people, you can do whatever you want." And the ironic part is that Hannah Arendt never said this. I mean, it's right, it feels right, it's truth-esque, but it is also a perfect illustration of the point. I myself have been having some problems with the ability to distinguish between truth and lies, right and wrong, and that problem has come in the form of AI slop. My colleague Josh just wrote a EFF blog post about a very serious problem that we are having at EFF, which is that the names of EFF employees keep getting attributed to quotes in news stories, and they are quotes of things we never made in stories by journalists that we never talked to, who sometimes didn't even exist. And to my continual annoyance, AI slop loves to quote me. AI slop goes on and on about what Director of Cybersecurity Eva Galperin has to say. And let me tell you, I am extremely disappointed because Director of Cybersecurity Eva Galperin speaks in a lot of cliches. She talks a lot about how, oh God, you can't allow AI to run rampant. It's just very bad for surveillance. It sounds plausible. It sounds like a thing that I would say, except for that it's not catchy, and it's kind of predictable and boring. AI Eva Galperin is not very good. And then, as a final indignity, this blog post brings up an example of a news story that quotes one of EFF's employees, Lin Win, and that even attributes the quote to an interview in the Arabian Post. However, no one named Lin Win has ever worked for the Electronic Frontier Foundation. No one with that name, indeed, exists in all of the digital privacy world that I know of, in spite of the fact that it is a very common Vietnamese name. And also, this quote never appeared in the Arabian Post. Do I think this is all going to get worse? Oh, I think it's all going to get so much worse. And the reason that I think it's going to get much worse is that just yesterday, OpenAI released its Sora AI video generator. This is something that has already existed for some time, but this is the version 2.0 of the video generator. And tellingly enough, it allows you to do two things. One is that you can now create cameo little videos of your friends. You can now create fake videos of your friends saying and doing things. Nothing will go wrong with this. It will absolutely not be used as a vector of abuse, definitely not as a vector of video phishing, and definitely will not pose any danger to privacy or security anywhere in the world. And then finally, in order to show you how little the OpenAI people really care about the knock-on effects of these videos, one popular AI-generated clip in the For You feed depicted the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, stealing a graphics processing unit from Target. When the character gets caught, a voice that sounds like Altman's pleads with the security guard to let him keep the GPU so he can build AI tools. And so finally, I want to leave you with some thoughts about the things that you can do as people who work in the technology industry, as both the hackers and the CISOs. I think earlier we heard that our battle is not really hackers versus CISOs, that hackers and CISOs are working together. But it is possible when hackers and CISOs work together to do great good, but also to do great evil. And so let's talk about how to not do evil. Let's just start with, sometimes the answer is no, we won't build that. One of the things that I hear very often when people in the tech industry are asked to build something that is going to be ethically questionable is, well, if we don't build it, somebody else will build it. It will just be someone else. It will be someone even less ethical than us building it, so we have to build it right away. It's very important that the profit goes to us and not to them. And to this I say a couple of things. The first is, no, you don't have to build it. Even if someone else is going to build it, you don't have to build it. It doesn't have to be you. And if enough people say, no, I am not going to build it, it will not get built. And even if it does get built by someone else, at least it's not you. At least generations from now, if there is still a Wikipedia page, there will not be a Wikipedia page dedicated to the orphan crushing machine with your picture next to it saying, reluctant maker of orphan crushing machine, because he was worried that someone else might make it first and make more money. Sometimes you just have to say no. Do not comply in advance. One of the ways in which authoritarianism and totalitarianism works is not by forcing every single person to do its bidding. It is by simply making its bidding known, and then the people in power just bend the knee in advance. They make the settlement with the president. They give him the money. They pay him for his ballroom or his, presidential inauguration. They settle a lawsuit even though they know that they could win the lawsuit. This is complying in advance. Complying in advance, to begin with, will not save you from fascism. It will not even delay the time when fascism comes to get you. The only thing which delays fascism is instead of saying, how can we make you more comfortable, you say, fuck you, make me. It is also really important that we future-proof our systems. When we collect vast troves of data, we need to think about who has access to that data, where that data is going, and we need to plan for a future in which the people who have access to that data want to do bad things with it. Often this means data minimization, simply not collecting the data in the first place. And I know that this is a very unpopular thing to do in security because it's very hard to make security decisions without all of the information. But sometimes you need to let the information go. You need to think about, is this information that I really need in order to make these choices, or is keeping this information around going to be dangerous later when people who also have other information use it and combine it and form a very detailed picture of, say, our users, or everybody walking by these security cameras, or everybody with a face. Decentralize. One of the biggest problems with the internet, with the platforms that we use, with our infrastructure that has really become clear in recent years is that so much of it runs on American hardware, on American dollars, on US companies. The idea of sort of controlling your own data and controlling your own platforms and having power over who sees what in your own country and your own community is really important. And this is one of the reasons why I am very excited about the sort of social media decentralization projects that are going on right now. This is why at the beginning of the talk you could see my accounts on like Mastodon and Blue Sky and not on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok. I really want to encourage decentralization because I think that this is the way forward. If your concern is authoritarianism and totalitarianism, then you need to be concerned about the pooling of power. And anything that we can do to keep that power from pooling in the first place will make it less difficult for us later when the people who have that power turn out to be very bad. And then I did just cover data minimization. Build with marginalized people in mind. One of the biggest problems that we have when we build platforms and we build tools is that we build for people like ourselves. We build for people who have the same kinds of problems that we do, who have the same kind of education that we do, who have the same kind of home life that we do, who have the same kind of tools even that we do. And the world is not like that. There are billions of people on this planet who all live in very different ways and who have extremely different concerns. And if we start by building with the most marginalized and vulnerable people in mind, we will inevitably build tools that work for people who are already powerful, who already exist at the center. But if we build tools only for the powerful and for people at the center, we will never build tools that are safe for people at the margins. And then finally, I just want to leave you with a thought, which is that when people talk about traveling to the past, they worry about radically changing the present by doing something small. But barely anyone in the present really thinks they can radically change the future by doing something small. And so, what I would like for you to take from this is that you don't have to be radicalized. You don't have to get out on the streets. You don't necessarily have to march. I'm not even saying you need to go up and say, "Fuck you, make me." It would be great if you did, but you don't have to. It is all about doing little things and incorporating these concerns into your everyday work, because your work is made up of 1,000 little decisions, 1,000 moments where you can make the world better in a way that other people can't. You are uniquely powerful, and fascism needs you to either feel that you are powerless, or it needs your complicity in order to survive and thrive. And I think we should starve them out. Thank you very much.